I stood there frozen, grocery bags sagging at my sides as the silence screamed louder than any words. The window where my Steinway once stood now framed a potted fig tree, staged like my grief was decor. We needed the space, she'd said, like inheritance was clutter, like legacy was in the way. Wait, before we go any further, I gotta ask, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. The front door clicked open to the scent of lemon cleaner and the soft hum of silence. Lucy Garner stepped into the foyer, shifting two cloth grocery bags against her hip. The wind outside had clawed at her coat, left a faint numbness in her knuckles. Omaha's cold had arrived early this year, sharp, unsentimental. She towed her shoes off by the umbrella stand, balanced herself, then froze, mid-step. The living room sounded wrong. No soft echo, no resonance, just still, sterile air. She walked in, each step growing slower, heavier. Her eyes scanned the space automatically, searching for the familiar curve of dark wood and brass. The Steinway had sat by the front window for 23 years. It had come with them from their last house. She had tuned it every 3 months, even after Harold passed, even when her fingers had started to stiffen. The piano was gone. In its place, a ghost of indentations in the rug, like a body that had been dragged without ceremony. A potted fig tree now occupied the corner. The walls, once draped in her husband's black and white recital photos, had been stripped clean. Above the mantel, a wide, backlit mirror shimmered like a shallow pool. Lucy set the grocery bags down without noticing they had started to sag. Footsteps clicked across the hardwood above, then descended, the sound too light to be Tyler. Kendra's voice preceded her, airy and bright like a podcast host. "Oh hey, you're back. Groceries in the kitchen?" Lucy didn't turn. Her eyes remained on the space where the Steinway should have been. "What happened to the piano?" she asked, voice low but steady. A pause. Then, breezy as daylight. "We needed the space." Kendra walked past her into the kitchen, plastic bangles tapping against her phone screen. "We're redoing the front area. Open concept, clean lines. The old piece, it just didn't really flow." Lucy pivoted slowly, taking in the high back accent chairs in pristine white, the abstract canvas on the far wall, and the glint of a new chrome floor lamp. It was all bone-colored and cold. Not a room for living, a room to be posted. Tyler entered a beat later, unshaven and harried, holding a to-go coffee. He caught her look and exhaled. "It didn't match the aesthetic, Mom," he said. "We talked about updating the space. You said you didn't mind modernizing." "I said a rug," Lucy replied quietly. "A new rug. You asked about a rug." He rubbed his temple, then looked at Kendra, who offered a tight smile and kept unpacking organic kale. Lucy's fingers curled against her side. "Where is it?" "Sold," Kendra said, as if the word were no heavier than recycled. "We posted it to a vintage resale site. Some lady drove up from Kansas City, real collector type." "For how much?" Kendra laughed, startled. "Does it matter?" Tyler stepped in. "Look, I know it had sentimental value. It was a Steinway. But you hadn't played it in a while. It was just taking up space." Lucy stood motionless, the house pressing in around her. The silence felt cruel now. Her gaze drifted to the empty spot on the floor where the petals had left faint impressions in the wool. "We needed the space," Kendra said again, softer this time, like she was doing Lucy a favor. Her phone buzzed in her coat pocket. Lucy didn't check it. She didn't trust her hands not to shake. "You sold it," she said flatly, "without asking me." "It was a family decision," Tyler offered. "You live with us now, remember?" "No," she said. "You live with me." Neither of them responded. The phone buzzed again. This time, she pulled it out. A text lit up the screen. Moira Driggs. Want me to come get you? Lucy stared at the message. In the background, Kendra laughed at something on her phone, sharp and hollow, like glass snapping under pressure. Lucy typed back one word. Then she looked up, eyes like winter. The garage light hummed overhead, cold, fluorescent, and indifferent. Lucy stood between towering plastic bins marked Xmas, Tyler's college stuff, and baby clothes, none of which were hers. She wore gardening gloves, not for warmth, but to keep from feeling the brittle edges of cardboard and dust and time. She opened a warped filing cabinet against the back wall. Each drawer groaned like it resented her presence. Faded tabs labeled HOA dues and Utilities, 2003, slid past. In the bottom drawer, she found an old manila envelope, folded once, slightly watermarked in the corner. The label in her late husband's handwriting read, Steinway, Appraisal and Insurance. Her breath caught. She pulled it out carefully, as if touching it too quickly might break something sacred. Inside, a single-page document on parchment like stock. Appraised value, $22,000 signed, Richard B. Elston, Nebraska Conservatory of Music, Estate Instruments Division. Her name was there, next to Harold's. The appraisal dated back to 1996, but the signature was in permanent ink, unmistakable, real, official, legal. She stared at it a long moment before folding it back, precise as origami, and sliding it into her coat pocket. The door from the kitchen creaked open. "Smells like mold down here," Kendra called, wrinkling her nose at the top step. "Tyler said you were digging around for paperwork?" Lucy didn't answer. She was already moving past the bins, back toward the stairs. Moira arrived an hour later in a thick navy pea coat, her salt and pepper hair twisted into a loose bun, eyes sharp behind cat-eye glasses. The living room looked the same as yesterday, glossy and hollow. Lucy stood by the mantel, arms folded, watching the wind tease the bare branches outside. Moira stepped in and let out a low whistle. "So this is the crime scene." Lucy handed her the appraisal silently. Moira read it, eyebrows rising. 22 grand, she muttered. "Jesus, Lucy." Lucy nodded once, jaw tight. Before Moira could speak again, the front door opened, and the sound of casual chatter spilled in. Kendra appeared with a young couple from the neighborhood. Bright smiles, oversized scarves, fake laughing at nothing. Kendra gestured toward the mirror and chairs. "We just wanted something clean, you know," she said. "The piano was this huge antique, took up so much space. But look how open this feels now." The couple nodded approvingly. Lucy didn't move. She stood by the fireplace like a statue cast in grief. Moira leaned close, voice pitched low. "If I were you, I'd start swinging." Lucy shook her head, lips thin. "Not yet." Kendra turned toward them mid-sentence. "Oh, and this is Tyler's mom. She used to teach piano." "Still does," Moira corrected flatly. The neighbors smiled awkwardly. One of them offered a little wave. "Hi." Lucy inclined her head slightly, then turned and walked to the kitchen without a word. 10 minutes later, they sat at the breakfast table, tea steeping in 2 mismatched mugs. Lucy placed the appraisal down between them like a chess piece. Moira tapped the corner thoughtfully. "You still know anyone at Legacy Lending?" Lucy looked up. "Ken Alvarez?" Moira smiled. "He was your student once, right?" Lucy didn't smile back, but something flickered behind her eyes. Not anger, not yet. Something older, deeper, like the first low rumble before a storm gets its name. "Do you still have his number?" she asked. Moira pulled out her phone, already scrolling. "I never delete the good ones." Outside, through the narrow kitchen window, Kendra and the neighbors posed for a photo in front of the fig tree, where the Steinway had once lived. Inside, Lucy's kettle hissed. The mug in her hand trembled, just slightly. Ken Alvarez kept his office warm, borderline stuffy. But Lucy didn't complain. The heat was welcome. It thawed the edge that had settled in her shoulders since the piano vanished. He moved with the fluid confidence of someone who could charm a boardroom or a church pew. Gray at the temples now, but his frame still lean, tailored navy blazer hanging just right. He squinted at his monitor, frowning slightly as his fingers danced over the keyboard. They refied last spring, he said, reading. March 18th. Approved under a 30-year fixed. He clicked again. Pulled a decent amount of equity, too. Lucy sat in the straight-backed chair across from his desk, purse folded neatly on her lap, gloved hands resting atop it. Her expression was still, but her eyes tracked everything. Who signed? She asked. Ken leaned closer to the screen. Tyler and Kendra Garner, joint borrowers. And me? Nope, he said. You're not on the refinance. He paused. But you're still on the original deed. That was never released. He turned the monitor so she could see. There it was in black and white. Lucy M. Garner, still listed under title holders. She stared at it for a moment, then looked back at Ken. I want to make it uncomfortable. His eyebrows lifted, but he didn't look surprised. Lucy, do you know what this means? I think so, she said. But say it. Ken folded his hands. You may be the silent title holder, not just a resident, not just a co-signer on utilities. You still own part of that house. Silence settled between them. Outside the window, traffic passed without consequence. Inside, the air felt charged. I don't want the whole thing, she said eventually. Just my half, and my say. Ken nodded slowly. We'll need to verify some documents, but if Moira still has the originals from Harold's estate, this could get very interesting, very fast. Lucy gave a single nod. She's printing them now. Back at the house, Kendra's minimalist Christmas decorations were already beginning to appear. Matte gold reindeer, a skeletal white wreath, and a faux fur runner across the entry table. The space felt curated to death. Moira had spread out a folder on Lucy's bed upstairs. The guest room had 2 walls of beige, and a twin bed meant more for staging than comfort, but it was Lucy's now. She kept everything, Moira said, flipping pages. Deed, tax filings, even the county property map from 2002. Lucy leaned in, skimming the page with her name centered in elegant serif font. Moira looked up at her. How far are you willing to take this? Lucy didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked to the nightstand and picked up a framed photo. Harold was seated at the piano bench, head tilted slightly as he played, one hand midair in a poised arc. The black of the keys glistened under afternoon sun. Behind him, the room had still been theirs. Bookshelves, record stacks, framed photos of conservatory students. She traced the glass with one finger. They sold what I kept alive, she said softly. Moira said nothing. Lucy turned. I'm not burning it all down. I'm just moving the fire inside. Moira handed her the folder. Well, you've got the matches. Later that night, Lucy sat alone in the kitchen. Kendra had retreated upstairs after complaining about someone leaving the oven fan on. Tyler hadn't come home from whatever deal he was chasing. The kettle steamed softly. The appraisal was tucked beside her, and now the deed folder rested open under her hand. The strings they thought were cut weren't. The legal clinic sat on the quiet end of Farnham Street, tucked between a tax office and a dental supply storefront, its brick exterior softened by ivy curling along the window edges. The sign read, Graves Elder Law. Below that, in brushed steel, estate planning, guardianship, quiet titles. Inside, the reception area was hushed, almost monastic. Neutral grays, thick carpet, a single analog clock ticking above a row of unoccupied chairs. Lucy sat with her hands folded in her lap, the folder from Moira balanced on her knees. She had dressed with intent today, pressed slacks, a navy cardigan, the silver leaf brooch Harold had bought her after her final faculty recital. She looked, as Moira had quipped that morning, like someone who doesn't lose things, especially not houses. The door behind the frosted glass swung open. "Ms. Garner?" Fallon Graves extended a hand, her expression unreadable. Late 50s, impeccably groomed, tailored dark blazer, glasses perched low on her nose. She had the calm, silent gravity of a woman who could sink a ship with 3 lines and a smile. Lucy stood and followed her into a private office. The walls were lined with framed degrees and antique law books. Not a single personal photo. "Ken Alvarez sent me your documents last night," Fallon said, gesturing for Lucy to sit. "I reviewed the title history and deed filings. Let's walk through what we're working with." She pulled up a monitor and clicked twice. A digital scan of the deed appeared. Fallon pointed to the screen. "You and your husband took ownership in '98. The refinancing done by your son and his wife didn't void your interest in the property. You never filed a quitclaim. No release of ownership, no sale, no death-triggered transfer." She leaned back, hands steepled. "Which means," she said with that same perfectly professional tone, "they've been acting as full owners of a property they only partially control, and they either never checked or never cared." Lucy stared at the screen. There it was again. Her name, printed in formal black ink. Still there. Still standing. "I thought I'd signed something after Harold passed," she murmured. Fallon shook her head. "You signed the probate settlement, not the deed. Most people don't know the difference." She paused. "Fortunately for you, they didn't either." A small, tight smile touched her lips. "They have a problem." Lucy met her gaze. "And I'm not done." Fallon tilted her head, studying her a moment. Then she nodded, clicked the screen off, and slid a simple white legal pad toward her. "Then let's start by defining what done looks like." Back at the house, the cold had deepened. Kendra had cranked the heat, but the place still felt like glass. Pretty, hollow, and breakable. Lucy sat in her guest room as Moira lugged in a plastic file box and dropped it onto the bed. "You're lucky I'm a sentimental hoarder," Moira said, snapping off the lid. Inside, tax returns, insurance statements, utility bills, HOA letters, some dating back decades. She pulled out a thick bundle of canceled checks, still clipped by decade. "Tyler never thought to clear these out after Harold passed," Moira added, flipping through. "And I didn't either." Lucy thumbed through one of the checks. Her name in blue ink, her signature in firm cursive, next to Harold's block print. The weight of history in a paper slip no bigger than a grocery receipt. "This all help?" Moira asked gently. Lucy nodded. "Fallon's building the case." Moira leaned on the doorframe, watching her. "You're not just aiming to scare them, are you?" Lucy looked up. "No." "Good," Moira said, arms crossed. "Because I don't think they scare easy." Downstairs, Tyler's voice echoed faintly, closing a call with a client, laughing too loudly, masking nerves with volume. Kendra's heels clicked across the tile as she rearranged throw pillows again. They didn't know it yet, but Lucy did. The upstairs guest room had been staged like a catalog spread, unused towels folded on the foot of the twin bed, a wicker tray holding a candle no one ever lit. It looked like a room built for showings, not living. Lucy unpacked slowly. She hung her sweaters in the closet, the wooden hangers clicking softly like metronome beats. A ceramic mug with her name, Lucy, in faded cursive, was set gently on the nightstand beside a coaster Moira had crocheted last Christmas. Her reading lamp, her night creams, her rhythm. The last thing she placed was a framed black and white photo. Harold, in his tuxedo, standing beside the Steinway just before a faculty concert. He had his hand on the lid like he was steadying an old friend. The door swung open behind her without a knock. Kendra stood there, arms folded over a white cashmere sweater. Her face was pulled taut, lips pinched, nostrils flared. "I thought we agreed the downstairs suite worked better," she said. Lucy didn't turn from the dresser. "It did." Kendra blinked. "Then, why are you moving?" "Because you sold my inheritance." Kendra's mouth opened, but Lucy cut her off, voice soft, almost pleasant. "And now you live with my rules." A silence fell between them, cold and immediate. Lucy finally turned and looked her daughter-in-law square in the face, calm, unflinching. "I'll be upstairs," she said, like it was an announcement, not a request. Later that morning, Tyler tried to play mediator. He found Lucy in the kitchen, slicing apples with the kind of precision that made it clear she didn't need help, only space. He offered his usual tone, half apology, half pitch. "Look, can we all just not escalate things?" Lucy didn't look up. "You mean after you sold a piano you didn't own?" He sighed. "I'm trying to keep the peace here." She placed the knife down deliberately. "No, Tyler, you're trying to keep control." Before he could respond, her phone buzzed. "Fallon Graves, notice filed. Confirmed with county clerk. You're now a co-petitioner for partition." Lucy's lips didn't move, but her eyes flared just slightly as she read it. She slid the phone into her pocket and picked up the knife again. "You might want to check your inbox," she said, not looking at him. "Something new may have arrived." By the next afternoon, the air in the house felt different, tight, too still. Lucy caught the whispers behind closed doors, a slammed cabinet, a too-long phone call in the driveway. And then, Tyler's voice from the office, brittle and rising. "What do you mean it's flagged?" Lucy stirred her tea in the next room. Ken had done exactly what she'd asked. After the partition notice was filed, he updated the property's loan profile in Legacy Lending's system. Status: under ownership dispute. It wasn't permanent, not yet. But it was a red flag, a reason for the bank's algorithm to take pause. Lucy didn't need to hack anything. She just let the machine do what it was programmed to do. That Friday, Tyler missed a call with a potential buyer. Word had gotten around. One of his own clients had asked why his personal home was listed as pending legal review. He tried to laugh it off, called it a paperwork mix-up. But Lucy heard the edge in his voice, the scramble. Kendra, meanwhile, retreated to her comfort zone. Control through calm. She posted a passive-aggressive quote on Instagram about protecting your peace and lit 3 white candles in a row across the fireplace mantel. But peace never arrived. It was Saturday evening when the real break cracked open. Lucy was in the upstairs hallway, folding a throw blanket, when she heard it from the kitchen, Kendra's voice. Not loud, but brittle, unsteady. "They just paused our autopay." A beat of silence. "What?" Tyler asked. "I got a notification from the mortgage portal. It says, payment temporarily suspended due to compliance review." "I can't even log in." Lucy didn't move. She let the words float through the hallway like smoke. The next morning arrived gray and stiff. The sky hung low over Omaha like wet laundry. The house was unusually quiet. No blender, no Bluetooth speaker humming yoga playlists. Just tension, settled thick in the air like smoke from an unseen fire. Lucy stood at the kitchen window buttering toast. Outside, a squirrel darted along the fence line. Inside, the silence fractured. Tyler came down the stairs fast. No socks, jaw clenched, voice sharp. "We need to talk." Lucy turned. Butter knife poised over her plate. "You could say good morning." "I'm serious," he snapped. Ken Alvarez flagged the mortgage. He triggered some kind of hold. She took a bite of toast, chewed slowly. "The mortgage portal says pending internal review. Escrow's frozen. The bank won't process our next payment until they get something from legal." He stepped closer. Are you trying to make us homeless? Lucy dabbed her mouth with a napkin. No, she said quietly. Just trying to give you space. Her voice was calm, deadly calm. And in that moment, Tyler seemed to realize the fight he thought he'd been having was already halfway over, and not in his favor. He stared at her, breathing uneven. This is your house, too. That's what you keep saying, right? So you're willing to burn it down while you're still in it? She pushed her plate aside and stood up. You already sold the thing that mattered. Now I'm just rebalancing the scales. He opened his mouth, but no words came, just the exhale of a man who'd run out of ground to stand on. That afternoon, Lucy sat in the sunroom with her tablet open, reading an email from Moira. Subject: What do you think of this one? Attachment: Prairie Loft. Unit 6B, PDF. Lucy enlarged the photos. Hardwood floors, south-facing windows, a small balcony with room for one chair and a potted basil plant. The kitchen was a narrow galley, but new appliances. There was a writing nook off the main room with just enough space for a narrow keyboard. The kind of place built for one. Moira's message ended with, just keeping options open. If nothing else, fun to look. Lucy clicked reply. Typed, looks peaceful. Then deleted it. Typed again, book me a tour. Discreetly. Then hit send. The following Wednesday, she drove herself. Wore sunglasses, a scarf, no makeup. The leasing office was calm and light-filled. The manager, a woman in her 30s who spoke softly and knew when to stay quiet. Unit 6B was at the end of the hall. High ceilings, pale blue walls, sunlight warming the wood beneath her feet. Lucy stepped into the main room and closed her eyes. No ticking clocks. No forced laughter. No paper-thin apologies from upstairs. Just the kind of silence she hadn't known in years. An earned one, free of strings. She opened her eyes and walked to the window. Below, the parking lot was quiet. Beyond it, a line of prairie grasses bent in the October wind. Gold. Stark. Unapologetic. She didn't ask the price. She asked how soon it would be available. That evening, back in the house, Tyler was pacing the hallway on his phone. Lucy passed him on her way up the stairs. He didn't speak, but the look he shot her was wounded. No longer angry, just lost. Kendra's voice floated in from the bedroom. Did they say when it'll be lifted? Tyler, we need to pay before the 15th. The door clicked shut before she could hear more. Lucy reached her room, sat on the edge of the bed, and opened her tablet again. The listing was still up. Her finger hovered over the Apply Now button. She didn't click. Not yet. But the window was open, and the wind was blowing in. The sound of clinking glasses echoed from downstairs. High-pitched laughter, the kind that hovered just above genuine. Lucy sat at the top of the stairs, listening. Kendra's voice carried easily. We've really embraced downsizing. It's all about letting go of clutter. Old furniture, stuff with no real purpose. It feels cleaner. Another voice chimed in, soft, polite, unthreatening. I saw something weird the other day. I was looking up property tax stuff. Don't ask. And Lucy's name came up on your house's deed. Isn't that, like, your mother-in-law? A brief silence. Too brief. Kendra's tone brightened artificially. Oh, old paperwork. She used to be on it, years ago. Must have never been updated. You know how databases are. There was a tightness in her laugh this time, though. A brittle edge. Lucy rose from the stairwell and walked down slowly, one hand on the rail. She didn't rush. The moment was already hers. When she stepped into the open-concept living room, 4 women turned mid-sip. The air smelled like overpriced Sauvignon Blanc and candle smoke. Kendra stood by the fireplace, wineglass frozen mid-air. Lucy offered a tight smile. Evening. No one spoke. No one needed to. Tyler stormed in 10 minutes later, red-faced and fuming, coat half on like he'd left mid-call. "Why is your name public now?" he barked before she even turned from the kitchen sink. Lucy calmly dried her hands on a linen towel. "Because it's always been on the deed." "You know what I mean," he snapped. "It's showing up in real estate searches. People are asking if the house is in probate, if it's for sale, if it's under lien." She folded the towel with slow care. "That must make selling it uncomfortable." "This is our house," he said, voice low now, dangerous. "We've lived here for over 10 years, paid for the remodels, raised our son here." Lucy nodded. "And yet, I've never been removed from title. Strange oversight for a real estate agent." She moved past him to the front room where a stack of mail sat by the entry table. A thick cream envelope rested on top, freshly delivered, addressed in Fallon Graves's distinct slanted print. She picked it up and handed it to him. "Here, that's your formal notice." Tyler took it with stiff hands. "Notice for what?" "Partition or buyout," she said. "You have options. Choose one." Upstairs, Lucy shut her door behind her and exhaled slowly. The room was dim, sunlight faded, shadows lengthening across the beige carpet. On her desk sat a second envelope, this one from Ken Alvarez. Inside, her updated trust documents. Her 50% ownership share of the Willow Avenue house now protected, redirected, and bulletproof. Ken had added a handwritten note on top. "You're not just secure now. You're sovereign." Lucy ran her fingers across the embossed folder, the soft blue cardstock as crisp as the day ahead. Downstairs, a door slammed. Tyler's voice rose, muffled by drywall and a decade of denial. Lucy didn't lean in to listen. She didn't need to. That part of the music was predictable now. Clamor, deflect, repeat. Instead, she opened her tablet. Unit 6B was still available, 1 click away. Lucy stood in the foyer, mail still in her hand, when she noticed it. A slim for sale sign leaning against the garage wall. Not planted yet, but ready. Glossy, double-sided, with Tyler's agency name printed in blue. She stared at it a long moment. Then she turned, walked back inside, and picked up the phone. "Fallon?" she said calmly, as if confirming a dinner reservation. "They're trying to list the property. No notice. No consent." Fallon didn't miss a beat. "Give me an hour." 52 minutes later, Lucy received a forwarded email. Subject: Notice of legal objection. Partition in progress. From Douglas County Clerk to Braverton Realty Group. Attached: a PDF of Fallon's emergency filing blocking all listing activity pending dispute resolution. Lucy sipped her tea as she read through the language. Unilateral sale not permitted under existing ownership status. All transactional movement frozen until matter is resolved by mutual agreement or judicial order. She exhaled slowly, not in relief, in confirmation. The rules of the game had shifted. That afternoon, Lucy passed Tyler's home office and saw him hunched over his laptop, pacing intermittently. His voice was tight on the phone. "No, I had no idea she was still on title. No, I didn't think it was an issue." Pause. "Well, it's complicated, but we'll figure it out." Another pause. "What do you mean you're withdrawing?" Lucy didn't pause. She kept walking. Downstairs, she entered the storage closet beneath the stairs. The cabinet holding her sheet music was still there. Tall, cherry wood, locked since Harold's death. She ran her fingers along the keyhole. The lock had been untouched, but still. Trust was no longer a renewable resource in this house. She dialed a local locksmith, the one Moira recommended, and arranged a service call. When he arrived, she greeted him at the door with a smile, led him to the cabinet, and said simply, "It's sentimental." He nodded once, respectful. 10 minutes later, she had a new lock installed, unique key, spare kept with her updated trust packet. When he left, Lucy lingered with the cabinet door open. She touched the worn corners of old sheet music. Debussy, Chopin, Gershwin. Pages annotated in Harold's faded pencil, circled crescendos, reminders to breathe through the third measure. It was her archive, her weathered symphony. She closed the cabinet gently and locked it. That evening, Moira arrived with something wrapped in a striped wool blanket. Had to get a few strong backs from the conservatory to help lift it, she said, dragging the bundle into Lucy's room. Inside, a small upright Yamaha keyboard. Not new, but clean. Portable. Perfect. It's not a Steinway, Moira said, setting it down with a grunt, but it doesn't judge dusty fingers. Lucy stared at it. Then slowly she sat, ran her fingers across the keys. Each press let out a soft note, slightly tinny, but real. Undeniably alive. Downstairs, raised voices cut through the floorboards. "We didn't even get to show it," Kendra snapped. Tyler's reply was sharp. "Because my mother is sabotaging us." Lucy didn't flinch. She pulled a tattered sheet from the cabinet, flattened it on the music stand. Claire de Lune, Harold's favorite. Her fingers hovered, then pressed down. The first note filled the room like breath returning. Then the next. Then a phrase. The sound was imperfect. The rhythm rusty. But the music was back. She played through the first page while the arguing continued below her, muffled by floor joists and decades of missteps. She didn't rush. She didn't stop. This house had heard enough lies. It was time for something true. The papers arrived in a nondescript envelope. No return address, no glossy logo. Just clean white paper, quietly dangerous. Lucy signed them at her desk, each signature deliberate, fluid. She didn't pause between pages, didn't hesitate at the final line. By sunset, she no longer owned the house, or rather, only half of it. The other half now belonged to someone else. Ken had made the introduction with quiet confidence. "Trust me," he said over the phone. "He doesn't buy homes. He buys leverage." Fallon filed the deed transfer with the county recorder the same day. Lucy's name remained on the historical records, but now, beside Tyler and Kendra Garner on the current title, sat a new name, Brass Key Holdings, LLC, an umbrella for one man. Samuel D. Kincaid, investor, litigator's son, portfolio manager of uncooperative properties. He didn't call, didn't email, didn't drop by for a friendly handshake. He filed notice. 3 days later, Tyler stood in the kitchen, reading the letter aloud in disbelief. "As partial legal owner of the property located at 4013 Willow Avenue, I will be conducting an appraisal to determine market rental value of my share. Any resistance to this process will be considered obstruction of access and escalated accordingly." He stared at Kendra. She stared at the countertop. "This isn't happening," she whispered. "It is," Lucy said from the doorway. She was already dressed for the move. Slacks, sneakers, soft sweater, sleeves rolled to the elbows. Calm, clinical, complete. "You sold your half," Tyler said, voice rising. "To a stranger." Lucy shrugged lightly. "No, I sold my half to a businessman. There's a difference." Kendra's voice cracked. "You knew he'd want to rent it out." Lucy tilted her head. "I assumed he'd want his share to pay for itself. You understand that concept better than anyone, don't you?" Tyler's jaw clenched. Lucy looked around the kitchen one last time. The space where Harold used to make omelets. Where the piano's soft echoes had once spilled down the hallway. Where everything had shrunk to fit Kendra's minimalism and Tyler's excuses. "I'll be out by tonight," she said. "No need to help. I've hired movers." Unit 6B welcomed her like a soft sigh. The living room had pale morning light and enough wall space for bookshelves. The basil plant Moira brought sat on the balcony, already thriving. Her new key turned easily in the lock. No jiggling, no hesitation. She stood in the doorway for a long moment, breathing in the absence of tension. Then she closed the door behind her and began to unpack her sheet music. That evening, as she unwrapped a lamp in her new living room, her phone buzzed. Fallon Graves. Updated deed recorded. Property now in dual control. Brass Key Holdings and Tyler Kushkendra Garner, all legal. Another message followed a beat later. Ken Alvarez. Investor scheduled appraisal for Friday. Wants rental pricing by month's end. Lucy read it twice. Then set the phone down with care. She didn't gloat, didn't grin. But in the quiet of her new space, she allowed herself a rare, audible breath of satisfaction. She had not burned the house down. She'd simply changed the locks. Back on Willow Avenue, a black sedan idled in the driveway. A man in a charcoal overcoat stepped out, clipboard in hand. Tyler opened the door in sweatpants. "I'm here to walk the shared property," the man said with crisp neutrality. "Shared with who?" "With us," the man replied, stepping past him. The first morning in Unit 6B broke quiet and gold. Lucy opened her balcony door to let the crisp October air roll in. The prairie grasses beyond the parking lot shimmered under soft light. No fences, no hedges, just open land leaning into wind. She brewed a cup of coffee in her new stainless steel maker. Then rolled up the sleeves of her cardigan and sat at the small upright keyboard Moira had helped move in. Her fingers hovered over the keys. No one stormed in. No one sighed from another room. No one made her presence feel like a negotiation. She played softly. The notes weren't perfect. Age had stiffened her joints, but they filled the room like breath, a quiet reclaiming, the slow undoing of silence. By Thursday, her days had rhythm again. Coffee, piano, reading, walks. In the late mornings, Moira would show up unannounced with pastries wrapped in napkins, cinnamon twists from that new bakery downtown, or cheese danishes still warm from the oven. She never stayed too long, just long enough to chat and laugh and deliver her weekly dose of gossip. "Did you see?" she said one morning, tossing her phone on Lucy's couch. "Kendra's gone private, locked down the whole account." Lucy looked up from her tea. "Oh?" Moira grinned. Someone must have commented something a little too honest. Lucy gave the tiniest smile but said nothing. She picked up the sheet music beside her instead, flipping past old annotations. Moira didn't push. Fallon arrived later that week for a short house call, her version of a courtesy drop-in, though the woman's presence always made Lucy sit straighter. "The trust is locked," she said, setting a leather folder on the counter. "All documentation finalized. Ownership of the house now protected by LLC transfer. Your distribution structured. You're fireproof." Lucy nodded, flipping open the folder. Everything was in order. Her name neatly printed at the top of every page. No fine print, no omissions, no room for manipulation. Fallon handed her a paper shredder with a dry smile. "Now let's clear the past, too." Together, they fed in old tax returns, expired contracts, medical summaries with Harold's name on them. Layer after layer of obligation, filed and kept just in case. With every page devoured by the machine, Lucy felt her lungs unspool a little more. By the time Fallon left, Lucy's file drawers were nearly empty. Only what mattered remained. Later that evening, Moira came by again. This time without pastries. She brought wine instead. 2 glasses. No preamble. They sat on the balcony as the prairie swayed in silence, the kind of silence that wasn't hollow, but full. Restful. Earned. "You're different," Moira said finally. "Better or worse?" Moira looked at her. Wider. Lucy blinked. Moira smiled. "Like a door you finally opened. Even if it took a wrecking ball." Lucy laughed. It was soft and real and short-lived, but it was hers. That night, Lucy stood by the keyboard, letting the last of the sunset press across the walls like watercolors. She set out her morning music, Sadie, a simple favorite, and placed it gently on the stand. She no longer needed to play to fill a silence. She played to feel the space respond. The voicemail came just after dawn. Lucy heard the buzz of her phone from the bathroom counter as she wrapped a towel around her hair. She glanced at the screen, still fogged from the shower steam. One missed call. No caller ID. The voicemail transcribed itself before she pressed play. Mom, it's Tyler. Look, I don't want to do this over a message, but I think we should talk. Things are complicated right now, and I know we haven't exactly. Anyway, if there's any chance we can work something out, I'd like to try. Call me back, okay? She sat on the edge of her bed and listened to the full recording once. Just once. The tone in his voice was new. It wasn't defensive. It wasn't pleading. It was something between fear and fatigue. Like a man knocking on a door he wasn't sure he still had the right to approach. Lucy watched the screen until the end of message queue appeared. Then she deleted it. No reply. No hesitation. That afternoon, Fallon called from her office. You may want to know, Tyler's submitted an application for a second mortgage, she said. It flagged our monitoring. He's trying to pull cash out of the property. Lucy didn't sound surprised. Is it even possible with the title split? He's hoping no one notices, Fallon said. Or doesn't care enough to intervene? Lucy hung up and forwarded the details to Ken. A half hour later, she sent a quiet message to Samuel Kincaid's legal office. Possible lien attempt in violation of shared asset terms. Brass Key Holdings may wish to review. No signature, no emotion, just momentum. By the following morning, the block had been filed. The second mortgage application was formally denied under dispute status. The portal flagged the property again. Asset in contested ownership. No financial activity permitted. Lucy didn't announce it. She didn't need to. That same day, Moira pulled into the circular drive of the Nebraska Conservatory with a trunk full of Harold's music books. The staff opened the rear door gently, reverently, as if the boxes might dissolve under sunlight. They didn't know the man who had annotated them, or the quiet Sundays he'd spent marking finger positions in the margins with his mechanical pencil. But they treated the donation like something sacred anyway. Lucy stood off to the side as two student volunteers carried in the last crate. She didn't cry. She'd done that already. Instead, she ran her hand along the cover of the topmost book, List, Complete Etudes, and closed the trunk. Think they'll keep them, or toss them? She asked Moira. They'll keep them, Moira said. You'd be surprised how many kids still want to learn on real paper. Lucy smiled. Good. She didn't say he would have liked that. She didn't need to. Back at Unit 6B, she slipped off her shoes and walked barefoot to the keyboard. The keys were cool beneath her fingertips, and the house smelled faintly of lemon oil and fresh basil. There was nothing in her inbox from Tyler. No follow-up voicemail, no apology, just quiet. But this time, the quiet didn't feel like absence. It felt like clarity. The envelope was thick and ivory-colored, sealed with a silver-embossed logo Lucy didn't recognize until she opened it. Inside, a single-page document on heavyweight legal stock. Notice of termination of tenancy. Effective immediately, Brass Key Holdings, as legal co-owner of 4013 Willow Avenue, is filing for full possession of their undivided interest. Occupants must vacate within 30 calendar days of this notice. No further extensions. All communications are to go through legal counsel. Lucy read it once, standing barefoot in her kitchen. She didn't sit, didn't even blink. Then she folded the letter neatly, slipped it back into its envelope, and placed it in the drawer beside her stove, between her tea infusers and her piano polish. Fallon called later that morning. It's happening, she said, voice crisp. Samuel's team filed with the county this morning. They've submitted a petition for full partition via possession and intent to rent. Lucy didn't ask if Tyler and Kendra knew yet. Fallon added, I've directed all further communications through our office. You are not to be contacted directly. If they try, tell me. I doubt they will, Lucy said. Still, Fallon said, they're in the part of the story where people get desperate. Lucy opened the balcony door. Let them. Moira came by with a glass pan of lemon bars, the powdered sugar still clinging to the parchment paper. I figured you'd either be elated or weirdly calm, she said, setting the pan on the kitchen counter. So I brought both sugar and citrus. Covers both moods. Lucy gave her a look. I'm fine. I know you are. Moira opened a drawer without asking and found plates. But still, you did it. Lucy poured tea for both of them. It's not over. Sure feels like a closing number to me. More like a decrescendo. Back at Willow Avenue, the energy shifted like furniture on cracked floorboards. Tyler didn't believe the notice at first. He called the number listed, got a paralegal who refused to answer hypotheticals. Kendra tried emailing the investor's assistant. It bounced back. By the second week, a process server knocked on their front door during dinner and handed them a formal document in triplicate. Occupancy to end. 28 days and counting. The agent scheduled a walkthrough with a property manager. An insurance inspector showed up, clipboard in hand. The shared kitchen, the upstairs bedrooms, the finished basement, all under review. Is this even legal? Tyler shouted into the void, but there was no one left to shout back. They had spent years curating appearances. Now, no one was watching. In Unit 6B, Lucy played Chopin. Not a grand concert, not even a full piece. Just fragments. Echoes of memory. Enough to stretch her hands and breathe through her ribs. The notes floated through the late afternoon light like little threads of silk. Below, the parking lot remained quiet. Just wind and open sky. A tap at the door broke her rhythm. It was Moira, again, this time with a sly smile. The cashier's check arrived by certified mail, sealed inside a firm white envelope with a tab that peeled like surgical tape. Lucy opened it at the breakfast counter, beside her basil plant and her half-drunk tea. Payable to Lucy M. Garner. Amount, $81,200. Memo, proceeds from equity liquidation, 4013 Willow Avenue. She didn't smile. She just laid the check flat on the counter and smoothed the edge once with her finger. Then she reached for the kettle. The house had gone quickly. After Samuel Kincaid took full possession of his share, the rest of the process unfolded like a cold and well-oiled machine. His legal team offered Tyler and Kendra a buyout figure they couldn't meet. Not even with a co-signer. Not even with Grace. When they missed the deadline, the full property went to market under a strategic short sale provision. The new buyer was a surgeon from Lincoln, divorced, 2 teenage daughters, no baggage, clean financing, and a taste for elevated traditional charm. The remodel was immediate. Walls repainted, hardware replaced, light oak floors polished to a dull gleam. Tyler and Kendra didn't even get a tour. They were out the day before the new owners moved in. Lucy received a text the following morning. Tyler, we have nowhere to go. She stared at it for a moment, then deleted it without response. Another alert came an hour later, this time from PayPal. Payment request, $2,000 from Kendra Garner. Note, security deposit for new lease. Please, Lucy. Lucy declined it instantly, then blocked her. That afternoon, Moira arrived with a fresh tin of loose-leaf Earl Grey and a smirk that didn't ask permission. You're insufferably calm, she said, measuring leaves into the infuser. Do you have any idea how many people fantasize about this kind of ending? Lucy leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. This wasn't a fantasy. This was math. Moira raised an eyebrow. Vengeful math. Lucy chuckled. The kettle hissed. Moira poured the water and handed over a cup. The kitchen was full of quiet clinking and lemon oil. Light filtered in through the windows and nothing, absolutely nothing, needed to be fixed. Later that week, a photo arrived in Lucy's inbox. No sender. No caption. Just an image. The living room at 4013 Willow Avenue. Sunlight spilled through freshly cleaned windows. The rug was gone. So were the sterile white chairs. The fig tree had been moved to the corner. And in its place, centered precisely where the old Steinway had once lived, stood a new grand piano. Glossy. Mahogany. Full lid open. The keys. Untouched. Lucy stared at it for a long time. Not in sadness, not even in recognition, but in understanding. The room had a piano again. Not hers. Not Harold's, but a piano, nonetheless. Moira dropped by the next morning and found Lucy dusting her keyboard. "You see the picture?" she asked. Lucy nodded. "No note, no signature." "Maybe it was from the realtor," Moira offered. "Or Kincaid." Lucy shook her head. "Doesn't matter." "Doesn't bother you?" Lucy turned and looked at her. "I didn't get the piano back," she said. "I got something better." Moira waited. "I got the silence that comes after the last note," Lucy said. "The kind that lets you decide whether to play again." The piano lab at the Nebraska Conservatory smelled faintly of dust and dried erasers. The keyboards were old, some chipped, others yellowing at the edges, but they held their pitch and their purpose. Lucy sat on a worn swivel stool as a girl named Valeria struggled through a simple two-hand exercise. 8 years old, high ponytail, wrists too tense. She counted each note aloud, chewing her bottom lip between chords. Lucy didn't correct her at first. She let the girl finish, then rested a gentle hand on the bench. "You're thinking like you're afraid to mess up," she said. "But mistakes are proof you're trying." Valeria blinked. "Even when it sounds bad?" Lucy smiled. "Especially then." By the end of the hour, the girl's shoulders had dropped. The rhythm wasn't perfect, but the melody had found room to breathe. Twice a week now, Lucy walked the 4 blocks from her loft to the conservatory to teach beginner classes for students who couldn't afford private lessons. Some used city bus passes. Some shared shoes. A few had parents who sat on the hallway benches reading crumpled job listings while their children learned scales and patience. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. She just taught. And for the first time in years, Lucy didn't feel like she was trying to reclaim her life. She was simply inhabiting it. Her loft remained modest. Open-plan kitchen, small writing nook, balcony herb garden. The space didn't echo. It absorbed. Books leaned into each other. Mugs were mismatched. Nothing was staged. Everything was hers. Each night she played a few pieces, never more than 1 or 2 pages. Sometimes she stopped mid-measure just to listen to the air between the notes. Harold had once told her the space between the sounds was the place where truth lived. She believed him more now than ever. Moira appeared one Friday afternoon holding a small white envelope and wearing an expression of suspicious innocence. Lucy narrowed her eyes. "What did you do?" "Nothing," Moira said too quickly, waving the envelope. "Unless buying us symphony gala tickets counts as something." Lucy blinked. "The gala? With the long dresses and the overpriced cheese trays? And a guest list full of people who used to call us ma'am like it was a warning?" "Yes, that one." Lucy took the envelope and slid out 2 sleek black tickets with silver trim. "You're serious," she said. "Deadly." That Saturday evening, Lucy stood in front of her full-length mirror, smoothing the collar of a navy velvet wrap dress she hadn't worn in 15 years. She pinned her recital brooch, an antique silver eighth note, onto the left side. The metal felt cool against her skin, then warm. She caught her own reflection mid-motion and paused. She looked like herself. Not a version. Not a shadow. Herself. The symphony hall was awash in gold and light. Chandeliers floated above the crowd. Moira wore a satin shawl and carried a flask of good trouble in her clutch. They found their seats just before the lights dimmed. The conductor walked on stage, tall and elegant, baton in hand. The first piece was Debussy. Lucy's breath caught on the opening chords. The notes shimmered. Not rushed. Not precise. Just true. She didn't close her eyes. She watched every measure. When she returned home that night, her cheeks were flushed from laughter and champagne. She set her heels beside the door and unpinned the brooch, holding it in her palm a long moment before placing it in the small dish by her keyboard. The room was quiet, not hollow, whole. Monday morning, a letter slipped through her mail slot, cream envelope, Fallon's familiar lettering. Inside, a single sentence, typed and centered. Estate is finally clean. Lucy read it, folded it once, then slid it between the pages of her Chopin prelude book, where it could rest without fanfare. The light came in slow and golden, as if even the sun had learned not to rush. Lucy sat at her small kitchen table, wrapped in a sweater Harold once called the oatmeal armor. The fabric was worn soft at the elbows, and it smelled faintly of bergamot and paperbacks. Steam curled from her mug. Her fingers wrapped around the ceramic like it held more than warmth. Like it held memory. Or maybe promise. No voicemails blinked, no urgent alerts, no forwarding addresses. Just a knock at the door, the gentle kind. "Get dressed," Moira called out as soon as Lucy opened the door. "I brought backup." The backup was a terrier mutt named Biscuit, lopsided ears and a leash that tangled around Lucy's ankles within seconds. "You're weaponizing cute now," Lucy said, deadpan. "I'm evolving," Moira replied. "Let's walk. I want carbs and sunlight and something shiny to stare at." Lucy didn't argue. They strolled 3 blocks south, past the bakery with the crooked awning and the florist who always kept 1 bucket of tulips on discount, even in fall. Biscuit trotted ahead like he had urgent business. Halfway through the walk, they slowed in front of an old music store, Langley's Instruments and Repair. The front window was streaked with age, but inside, the instruments gleamed like stage lights. Lucy stopped without meaning to. There, behind the glass, was a brand new upright. Warm walnut wood, ivory-style keys, brass pedals that caught the light like candle flames. She stepped closer. The bench was already tucked under it. An invitation, not a display. The sheet music on the stand was open to nocturne in E-flat major. "You okay?" Moira asked, her voice softer now. Lucy didn't answer right away. She just looked and hummed. The melody was barely audible. A few notes, held in her throat like water before it spills. The tune wasn't exact. It wasn't rehearsed. But it was hers. And it asked for nothing in return. Moira watched her for a moment, then said, "You know you could buy it now, right?" Lucy nodded. "I could." "But?" Lucy smiled. "It's enough to know I don't have to." Later that afternoon, she returned home and found the mail already slid under her door. No red stamps, no bolded final notices, no names she didn't recognize. Just a monthly bulletin from the conservatory, a coupon for tea, and a catalog she'd never signed up for but didn't mind flipping through. Peace wasn't a roar. It was the absence of alarms. She sat at her kitchen table again, letting the quiet return not as an enemy, but as a guest. Across from her, the Yamaha keyboard sat waiting. She didn't play right away. She just looked at it. The chipped black key from a student's dropped pencil, the sheet music with Harold's scribbled notes, the metronome Moira claimed she never used but always reset. Everything in its place. No one coming to take it. Biscuit barked somewhere down the hall. Moira's voice followed with mock outrage. You already pooped. Lucy laughed aloud. A real laugh. One that stayed in the room even after it left her mouth. She picked up her mug and took the last sip of now cold tea. Then stood, walked to the keyboard, and played the first few measures of a melody she didn't quite know, but was willing to follow wherever it went. They took my piano for space, so I sold their mortgage. For peace.